Listen to me closely because the clock is ticking and your margin of error has just evaporated to zero. You have exactly 1 hour before the screen in front of you goes black and the global nervous system gets severed. We are talking about the complete cessation of the digital pulse that holds this fragile civilization together. When that connection snaps, the kill mechanism activates immediately. The old world is over. It is not paused. It is not buffering. It is gone. Most people around you are currently sleepwalking into a meat grinder, paralyzed by normalcy bias, believing that the grid will flicker back to life in a few hours. They are wrong. They are confident mistakes waiting to happen. By the time they realize the servers aren't rebooting, they will have already become loot drops for those who acted with hard logic. You must strip away your emotional attachment to the comforts of the last hour and enter a state of cold, ruthless calculation. Survival is now a brutal mathematical equation, and right now, you are solving for variable x, which is information. The first operational priority is navigation, but you need to understand this through the lens of physics and crowd psychology, not your daily commute. Your smartphone is currently a tracking device that feeds you convenience, but in 60 minutes, it becomes a paperweight unless you sever its dependency on the cloud. The moment the internet dies, Google Maps becomes useless. It is designed for consumers, showing you restaurants, gas stations, and traffic, data points that are irrelevant in a collapse and will actually lead you into choke points and death traps. You do not need to know where the nearest Starbucks is. You need to know the elevation of the ridge line 3 miles east and the precise location of a fresh water spring. You need to download offline high-resolution topographical maps immediately. This is a matter of biology and thermodynamics. Every step you take in a post-collapse environment costs calories, and you are facing immediate calorie bankruptcy. If you attempt to navigate by memory or by using a standard road map, you are flying blind against the laws of physics. A straight line on a road map does not show you the vertical climb that will exhaust your glycogen stores before noon. Topographical data gives you the contour lines, the terrain features, and the natural barriers that dictate movement when the roads are clogged with desperate, violent mobs. You need to move like a gray man, invisible and efficient, avoiding the primary arteries where the chaos will be concentrated. The mob follows the road. The survivor follows the terrain. Execute this protocol now. You need to secure the entire database of OpenStreetMap or USGS topographical data. Applications like Osmand or Organic Maps allow you to pull raw vector data directly to your device's local storage. Do not rely on caching a small area. Download the entire region. Download the entire country if your storage permits. This is not about convenience. It is about having a tactical overview of the battlefield. When the lights go out, the person with the map is the person who can plan a route to resources while avoiding the kill zones. Without this data, you are trapped in a maze of concrete and asphalt, guessing your way through a landscape that is actively trying to kill you. You are securing the geometry of the world before the fog of war descends. Once you have the terrain locked in, you must immediately pivot to the fragility of your own biology, because the environment is not the only thing that will turn against you. Now that you have secured the ability to navigate the external terrain, you must turn your attention inward to the most fragile piece of machinery you possess, your own body. In a post-collapse environment, your biological systems are under immediate siege from the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy will attack your cells the moment the grid fails. You must understand that without the massive industrial complex of modern healthcare, a simple scratch from a rusty nail or a tooth abscess is no longer an inconvenience. It is a kill mechanism. It is a death sentence executed by microscopic biology. The margin of error here is absolute zero. You are not just a survivor, you are a biological asset that requires precise maintenance. And you currently lack the operational protocols to keep that asset functional. Most people harbor a confident mistake believing that their general knowledge or a basic first aid kit will suffice. They are wrong. A box of Band-Aids is useless against dysentery, sepsis, or acute appendicitis. When the hospitals become no-go zones, and they will rapidly transforming into high-density infection vectors and violent looting grounds, you become the primary care physician, the surgeon, and the pharmacist. You cannot rely on intuition. You need hard logic and verified data. You must download a comprehensive offline medical black box immediately. This is not about Googling symptoms. This is about having the entire accumulated knowledge of human pathology stored locally on your device. You need to execute the download of the WikiMed database via the KeyWeeks Reader or an equivalent offline repository. This file contains over 50,000 medical articles, encompassing everything from diagnosing tropical diseases to setting compound fractures. Furthermore, you must secure digital copies of military field manuals like the Tactical Combat Casualty Care, TCCC, and the Essential Civilian Guide, Where There Is No Doctor. These texts do not rely on high-tech diagnostic equipment you will no longer have. They rely on observation and low-tech intervention. They are designed for environments where the supply chain has collapsed. Consider the pharmacology. Do you know the exact chemical half-life of the antibiotics you might scavenge? Do you know the precise dosage of amoxicillin for a pediatric infection versus an adult with compromised kidneys? If you guess, you kill the patient. That is a brutal mathematical calculation. With this database, you convert a dangerous guess into a calculated risk. You transform your device into a diagnostic tool that can differentiate between a viral fever and the early stages of cholera. In a world where a minor infection turns you into a loot drop for bacteria, information is the only antibiotic that never expires. You must also understand that medical crises often trigger a psychological breakdown in the group. Pain and fear destroy unit cohesion. By possessing the definitive answer to a medical emergency, you stabilize the crowd psychology of your group. You become the authority not through charisma, but through the possession of life-saving truth. Do not underestimate the lethality of the invisible world. While you are worrying about raiders, the water you drink and the bacteria on your skin are plotting your demise. Secure this data now, because once the fever starts, it is too late to learn how to treat it. You have fortified your navigation and your biology, but you are still facing the inevitable reality of energy depletion. You are currently standing on the precipice of calorie bankruptcy. The illusion of abundance provided by the global just-in-time supply chain is about to shatter. And when it does, the laws of thermodynamics will come for you with absolute ruthlessness. You must internalize this fact. The supermarket shelves will be stripped bare within 72 hours by the panicked mob, driven by primal crowd psychology. Once those shelves are empty, they will never be restocked. If your strategy relies on scavenging leftover cans of beans, you have already failed. You are operating on a deficit that will eventually reduce you to a starving animal and then a corpse. To survive, you must transition immediately from a consumer of energy to a producer of energy. This requires data, not hope. Agriculture is not a hobby. It is complex chemistry and biology. The soil in your backyard is likely dead or deficient, and you do not know how to fix it without the internet to tell you which nutrients are missing. You cannot guess your way through a harvest cycle. A mistake in planting time, soil pH, or irrigation will not just result in a poor crop. It will result in death by starvation 6 months down the line. You must download the entire digital library of permaculture, sustainable farming, and local botany immediately. You need the hard data on crop rotation, composting, and seed saving. You need to understand the nitrogen cycle and how to synthesize fertilizer from waste because the industrial bags of NPK are gone forever. Furthermore, you must secure a high-resolution database of local flora for foraging, specifically focusing on the distinction between edible and toxic plants. The margin of error in botany is 0. If you cannot distinguish between wild carrot, Daucus carota, and poison hemlock, Conium maculatum, which look nearly identical to the untrained eye, you will activate a biological kill mechanism that destroys your nervous system in hours. You are not just downloading pictures of flowers, you are downloading the code to distinguish fuel from poison. Do not forget the chemistry of preservation. Growing food is only half the equation. Preventing entropy from rotting your harvest is the other half. You need the precise formulas for salting, smoking, and canning. You need to know the exact acidity levels required to prevent botulism, a microscopic killer that thrives in improperly sealed jars. Without this specific data, your attempt to store energy will turn into a biological weapon that kills your family at the dinner table. This is a brutal mathematical calculation of energy in versus energy out. Secure the agricultural and botanical data now, or face the certainty of a slow, agonizing metabolic collapse. Once you have secured the means to fuel the machine, you must ensure you can see the threats coming to take it from you. You are now operating in a world where silence is a weapon, but blindness is a death sentence. The moment the digital network collapses, the flow of information does not stop. It merely shifts from the fiber optic cables to the electromagnetic spectrum. The air around you is screaming with data, distress calls, military coordination, radar communications, and desperate pleas from the unprepared. But without the correct keys to decode this chaos, you are deaf. In a tactical environment, deafness is a kill mechanism. If you cannot hear the threat approaching before you see it, you have already lost the initiative. You are reactive, and in a survival scenario, reaction time is the distance between life and becoming a loot drop. You must download the global and local radio frequency (RF) databases immediately. Hard logic dictates that when the internet dies, radio frequency becomes the only physics-based medium for long-range communication that does not require satellite infrastructure. However, simply owning a radio is a confident mistake made by amateurs who treat survival gear like magic talismans. A radio without a frequency list is a paperweight. You cannot scan millions of frequencies manually. You need to know exactly where to listen. You must download the entire database from repositories like Radio Reference or Repeater Book. You need the specific frequencies for local emergency services, military operations, unencrypted police channels, and the amateur radio ham repeater networks in your region. You need the 333 radio plan protocol saved offline, which dictates the standard times and frequencies survivors will use to establish contact. Understand the crowd psychology of the airwaves. In the first 72 hours, the spectrum will be flooded with panic, misinformation, and emotional noise. This is the fog of war. By possessing a structured database of frequencies, you can filter out the noise and isolate the signal. You can monitor the movement of threats, roadblocks, quarantine zones, and mob migrations miles before they intersect with your location. This is intelligence gathering. This is how you apply the multiplier rule to your situational awareness. One piece of data about a hostile group's location multiplies your survival odds exponentially because it allows you to evade rather than engage. Furthermore, you must secure the protocols for brevity codes and phonetic alphabets. Communication must be precise, encrypted, and short. If you are forced to transmit, you must know how to do so without revealing your location or your resources. Lengthy, emotional conversations on open channels are a beacon for anyone hunting for supplies. You must adopt the philosophy of the gray man in the electromagnetic spectrum. Listen to everything. Transmit nothing unless absolutely necessary. You are building a passive radar system. While others are hiding in the dark hoping for the best, you will be tracking the collapse in real time, making cold, calculated decisions based on intercepted intelligence. You have the map, the medical knowledge, the food data, and the ears to hear the enemy. Now, you must secure the final layer, the ability to rebuild the machines that keep you alive. The final layer of your survival architecture is the defense against structural decay. You must understand that you are entering a war against entropy, and without the industrial capacity of the global supply chain, entropy has the advantage. In the old world, when a machine broke, you replaced it. You were a consumer, a passive node in a logistical chain. In the new world, that chain is severed. If your water pump fails, if your solar charge controller burns out, or if your shelter structure is compromised, you cannot call a specialist. You are the specialist. If you cannot repair the machines that sustain your life, you are merely renting your survival from the universe, and the rent is about to come due. A broken generator is not an inconvenience. Without the knowledge to repair it, it is a tombstone. You must download the Civilization Starter Kit, a comprehensive archive of engineering, mechanical, and chemical knowledge. You need to secure the schematics for internal combustion engines, DC electrical systems, and primitive construction techniques immediately. You need the open-source ecology database, which details how to build and maintain the 50 essential machines of a modern civilization from scrap. Consider the chemistry of daily life. Do you know the formula for manufacturing soap from wood ash and animal fat? If not, hygiene becomes a kill mechanism. Do you know how to mix concrete or synthesize basic adhesives? These are not academic questions. They are the boundary conditions of your existence. You must possess the hard data to manipulate matter, to repurpose the debris of the collapse into functional tools. This is the ultimate application of the multiplier rule. Knowledge allows you to turn trash into resources, while the ignorant freeze to death, surrounded by potential fuel. The clock has run out. The 60 minutes are gone. The screen is darkening. You have stripped away the confident mistakes of the digital age and replaced them with a hard drive full of operational principles. You have the maps to move, the medical data to heal, the agricultural science to feed, the frequencies to listen, and the engineering specs to rebuild. You are no longer a victim waiting to happen. You are a self-contained unit of civilization. The internet is about to die, but the data you have secured will keep you alive. Disconnect the cable. Go dark. The real work begins now.